Well, hi everybody. You with gothatfunk. I was tagged by Devtamagi. I'll leave a link to his channel in the sidebar to do another "Who Are You" video. And since I did one about a week and a half ago or so, I'm not going to wax poetic like I did the first time, and I'm not going to say I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever, because it occurs to me that who we are, in large measure, can't be spoken. There's the old cliche: actions speak louder than words. So I'm going to tell you about three instances in my life when my actions made me realize that I was the person who I wanted to be, or the person who I thought I was. Um, because I think we all go through life assuming that we will live up to our expectations of ourselves, and sometimes we fall short and sometimes not. So I'm going to tell you some of the times when I surprised myself. Right, number one, when I was about 18 years old, my grandfather, who was pretty wealthy, died. And a couple weeks before he died, he changed his will. And there were some significant changes to the will. Among the changes was he took me out of his original will, and also my uncle was taken away from being. He was still in the new will, my uncle, but he was no longer the executor of the will. Now, the executor is the person who decides which of the inheritors get what. My granddad died with lots of property, lots of assets in terms of stock and gold and other things as well. Consequently, there was an amazing fight that went on in my family, and my mom sided with my aunt, who was the executor of the new will, and my aunt and my uncle basically didn't get along ever, even before my granddad died. So there was all this argument about who should get what, and to be blunt, my uncle was probably wanting more than his fair share anyway. So yeah, my uncle pulled me aside and said, "Look, Paul, if we contest the new will together, it won't just look like one guy who has sour grapes. It'll be like, two parties from the old will contesting the new will." And he seemed to think, and his lawyer seemed to think, that they have a better chance of success if we contested it together. Well, contesting the new will for the old would have, A, involved me going against my own mother, which didn't sit very well with me, even though my mom was being a complete prick at the time. Um, and also, the more important part of it was, for me, I would have had to betray my grandfather's memory. You see, my grandfather was the most significant adult in my life as I was growing up. And to be honest, I know for sure that he never would have bequeathed anything to any of those people if he knew they were going to fight about it after he died. Now, you might think it's perhaps a bit naive for him to think they wouldn't fight about it. I don't really know. But end of the day, I knew my grandfather wouldn't want me to get involved, so I didn't. And by not getting involved, I potentially gave up anywhere between $750,000 and $1.5 million, assuming that we would have won. Or even if we didn't win, settling out of court with the other side would have made me pretty much fabulously wealthy. I would have been about 19 by the time it came to court. And had I got that kind of money at that time in my life, I certainly wouldn't be where I'm sitting right now. My whole life would be different. So I have no regrets about making that decision, even though it potentially cost me an awful lot of money, because there are more important things to me in life than money. And it's nice to have memories like that that I can look back on and know that I really believe that, and my actions lived up to it. There's more to that story, and maybe I'll go into that further in another video. Anyway, number two, 2002 was a pretty big year for me. I had just got married to my second missus the year before. Then right at the beginning of 2002, my son got appendicitis, and he nearly died. In fact, he nearly died twice. He got appendicitis, went to hospital, got the operation, came down with pneumonia while he was in hospital recovering. And I spent 12 days and nights in hospital with him, more or less 24 hours a day. My missus obviously brought me changes of clothes and stuff, and I showered there at the hospital. All free, by the way, on the NHS. I was allowed to stay in hospital every day and night as well. Anyway, so Falcon nearly died, and when he was in intensive care, and his life was literally hanging on by a thread, um, I'm nominally a Buddhist, and I considered the possibility that my son might perish. And of course, I would have been gutted. Of course, I would have been devastated if he died. But I was fascinated by the peace I was at as well, because it never even crossed my mind that Falcon wasn't saved and he might go to hell. Never crossed my mind for 1 millisecond. But what did cross my mind was that I wasn't afraid of death so much as I thought I was. That had my son died, he knew that I loved him, and I knew that he loved me, and he knew that I knew, and I knew that he knew that I knew, and so on. Um, and there was, what more is there in a relationship? You've done everything. And so it's kind of weird. I can't really describe what I'm trying to say, but I was at a, more or less at peace with it. And the idea that he might go to hell because he wasn't saved. Um, had someone mentioned that to me, I probably would have punched him in the face because it was completely irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was that he knew that I loved him, and I knew that he loved me. That was all that mattered. Um, right. In the same year, my daughter, who turned 12 that year, um, decided that she wanted to move out of my house and move back in with her mother. And she'd never lived with her mother except for during the time we were married, but we got divorced when the kids were little, like toddlers. Um, so Asha never ever knew a time of living with her mother, and I think that was pretty much it. Her and her mom had a pretty fractious relationship up until that point. In fact, I'd go so far as to say they didn't really like each other. And but Asha, bless her, she wanted to fix that. And when she told me she wanted to move away, I took her for a walk down to the ocean, and we had a long chat there at the beach for about 3 or 4 hours. And I told her all the reasons that I thought it was a bad idea, how it would affect her relationship with me, how it would affect her relationship with my second wife, how it would affect her relationship with Falcon, um, how once you make these decisions, you can't take them back. Even if you do take them back, the scars remain, etc., etc. I gave her everything to think about, all the reasons why her mom wasn't going to be right for her to live with, etc., etc. Her mom's completely different in terms of her parenting to me, and Asha had only known the sort of way I was raising her, and I was really worried that because her mom's a lot more strict than me, I was worried that she wouldn't respond very well to it. But to her credit, she did. But the real reason I let her go was because we were sat there on a log next to the beach, and I said to her, "Give me one reason of yours which outweighs all the reasons I've told you you shouldn't go." And she looked at me right in the eye and she says, "Dad, if I don't try and fix my relationship with Mom now, when I'm grown up, it might be too late." And how could I say no to that? Um, my girl, I raised her up to believe that when you have a decision to make, as long as you're prepared to live with the consequences of your decision, go ahead and make it. And if it turns out to be a mistake, well, you can deal with that. But you need to know that you can live with the consequences of your own decisions. I've said this to them, both my kids, ever since they were little. So it would be a bit rich for me to turn around when she was 12 and say, "Oh, well, you're not big enough to make this decision." Frankly, I thought she'd live over there for a year and then hate it and come back. But it turned out to be really good for her. Full credit to the other side as well. Her mother was more patient with her than I thought she would be in the beginning. And, it's turned out fine. And it did work. They have a really good relationship now. I don't think they're ever going to be as close as Asha is with me. And the reason Asha is still close with me is because I gave her credit that she knew her own mind and could live with her own decisions. And we're incredibly close. And I'm really, really grateful. Anyway, so those are things that I've done which have sort of helped me define who I am and made me realize that I am the person that I think I am. Who do you think I am? It's got that funk. May your ups and downs always turn out to be ups.